Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report presented by BetDSI. I am your host Tom Downey, here with a look at the top 25 free agents the Cowboys could sign this offseason. We'll work our way down from offense to defense. Of course, we'll start with quarterback, where Dak Prescott remains your number one option there. Rush and Mike White, though, I don't love those guys as backups, so I'll throw out one name in a rather down free agent crop at quarterback that I wouldn't mind the Cowboys signing. That's RG3. Now, he didn't play much for the Ravens as a backup. I think he'd be a solid fit as a veteran quarterback. I think could fit in the Cowboys scheme if asked and it has time to, learn the playbook and all that stuff. I also think, though, that Robert Griffin might end up staying on with the Ravens as a backup this season. A good fit there behind Lamar Jackson. So do you think the Cowboys need a veteran backup quarterback? Type A for yes, B for no. I kind of think it makes a lot of sense there. Not sure the Cowboys, though, feel the exact same way. All right, other running backs here, Ezekiel Elliott, Rod Smith. Remember, Jordan Chung and Darius Jackson, they were both on the practice squad to open the season, or during the season, I should say. Jameis Olawale, he's a free agent. Rod Smith is a free agent. So unless you're banking on Jackson or Chung being your number two, you need to at least plan for some losses if you do lose Rod Smith. So here are some cheap options at running back because guess what? The Cowboys aren't going to spend big money on a running back like a Mark Ingram, like a Le'Veon Bell or Tevin Coleman. I'm focusing on the options here that are at least somewhat realistic. Ingram, Coleman, Bell, those guys aren't. Someone who could be a cheap option is Ameer Abdullah, last played for the Minnesota Vikings. And remember the Will McClay special, a.k.a. the Cowboys' de facto GM. He likes those guys that were high draft picks and ended up not panning out. You might be able to sign Ameer Abdullah for no guaranteed money and bring him in as a guy that can compete for a roster spot as a number 3 or maybe number 2 back. Talented in Nebraska. I loved him coming out. Has not developed the way I thought he was going to. A similar type of player in terms of versatility and price is Ty Montgomery. Remember, he's played wide receiver and running back in the NFL for the Green Bay Packers and most recently for the Baltimore Ravens. And he also offers that return ability for the Cowboys. As they look for a backup halfback, I think it makes a lot of sense to target a guy that could also contribute on returns. That makes a lot of sense there, Montgomery, a potentially cheap veteran. Now, a slightly more expensive running back option is a guy like TJ Yeldon, coming off his best year as a pass catcher, at least for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he's likely more expensive than Ty Montgomery, than Ameer Abdullah, and might also be looking for a larger role. But if you want a running back who is actually maybe more suited, taking on a true number 2 role behind Ezekiel Elliott, I think Yeldon makes more sense than Montgomery Abdullah. By the way, I'll shout out Corey Grant, another cheap option in the Abdullah-Montgomery role. All right, question for you guys. Do you like the Cowboys Report? Type Y for yes, type N for no. If you like it, go subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report, or follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Cowboys World Dallas. That's the Facebook URL there. And if you typed in N, well, let us know why, and we'll see how we can make the show more enjoyable for you. On to receivers now. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, we know those guys are coming back. Cole Beasley, Tavon Austin, that's not quite set in stone yet. Allen Hurns could be cut. So you're looking potentially at a replacement for Cole Beasley if you lose him in free agency. And by the way, all these free agent targets are guys not on the Cowboys roster because we already went over those on a previous video here. Let's take a look at John Brown then, the Ravens wide receiver, who of the guys we're going to discuss here, I actually think might make the most sense from both a cost-effective perspective and just from an impact perspective as well. I think he'd be a good fit, can play outside, inside, and brings the speed the Cowboys certainly need more of. Only 42 receptions, but 715 yards, 5 of them went for TDs. Brings you a nice potential option for the Cowboys at wide receiver. Now, one name we could not leave out whatsoever was the one and only Dez Bryant. No way we were not going to include him, right? Played for the Cowboys. You all know that. He and Scott Linehan hated each other at the end there. Had to include Dez Bryant. Now, we know that Scott's gone. That's a big factor in maybe a return for Dez Bryant. Would he take on a smaller role? If Dez signs, he's going to be the 4th option. They would feature Amari Cooper, Zeke Elliott, and I think Michael Gallup more than Dez Bryant. So should the Cowboys bring back Dez? Type 1 for yes, 2 for no. I don't think it'll happen, but I think there was no way we could not at least mention Dez Bryant here. Another slot receiver that could make some sense is Adam Humphries, who is in many ways a younger version of Cole Beasley. He has emerged as one of the better slot wideouts in the NFL, just 25 years old, coming off a breakout year of 76 receptions, 816 yards, and 5 TDs. A far cry from a receiver at Clemson who could barely get on the field for most of his career with the Tigers. A cheaper option than Cole Beasley, but I also think that means he's going to be more expensive than Cole as well. One more name that I love, would have been at the very top of my list if the Cowboys not traded for Amari Cooper, is Golden Tate. I love what Golden Tate brings to an NFL roster. He is a Dak-friendly type of receiver, i.e. gets open, gets separation, can play outside, inside, can do everything for you. If the Cowboys really want to focus on throwing the ball more, Golden Tate would be a wise investment there. In the end, though, in what is likely Golden Tate's last contract, at least big contract, I should say, I think he might get more money and more guaranteed playing time in terms of targets and receptions elsewhere than by joining up with the Dallas Cowboys. We'll break down the tight ends next, but first, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Takes you right into the BetDSI site. Use promo code Cowboys120 for a 120% deposit bonus. So you put down $50 and they're going to give you $60 for free. Put down $100 and BetDSI will give you $120 extra to bet with. But wait, there's more. If you use Bitcoin, that bonus becomes 150%. Now, if you don't know how to use Bitcoin, we understand. We'll take care of you. DM us on Twitter @ChatSports, and we'll get you guys hooked up with that Bitcoin processor to get the extra money on BetDSI. To tight end now, as promised. Dalton Schultz, Blake Jarwin, those two are locked in coming back next year. Rico, Jeff Swain, maybe not so much. So some potential tight end targets for the Cowboys if they want to go big, because otherwise, really, what's the point? You don't need another number 2 like a Jesse James, who I don't love, I think is a number 2. You need a potential number 1 if that's the route you're going to go in free agency. So Jared Cook, I think, is the top free agent tight end this year. Now, there are some red flags here, the biggest being that he turns 32 this offseason and is coming off a career year. Typically, when you see older players have career years late in their year, it's a flash in the pan and they regress quickly after that. So a big year for Cook. I think he'd be too expensive. I say pass in the end, but I think the Cowboys would be wise to at least consider Jared Cook. One guy that I am more intrigued by is Tyler Eifert of the Cincinnati Bengals. When healthy, the dude is a stud. The problem is that Tyler Eifert's never actually healthy. He is a cheap flyer option for multiple teams. If he is interested in the Cowboys, because I think we'll have plenty of offers, sign me up. 1-year deal. If he proves it, awesome. If not, well, you still have Schultz and Jarwin behind him. One other super under-the-radar option here is Ryan Hewitt of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, he's mostly a blocker in the NFL because he's played both tight end and fullback. So here's my proposal, okay? Go sign Ryan Hewitt. Cheap, 1-2-year deal. Make him back into a fullback like he was back when he played for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let Jameez Olawale go. You can still re-sign Rod Smith. You got 2 guys that can play fullback for you. And worst case scenario, Ryan Hewitt becomes your number 2 or your number 3 tight end as a pure blocker. Cheap, positional flex guy that can help you out. I like this idea, even though he's certainly not a sexy name with 1 catch for 1 yard, although it did go for a touchdown. Offensive line now, as we get close to wrapping up our offensive groupings here. Interior, you're fine. Sewell, Frederick, Looney, Martin, Suafilo, Parker Anger coming back too, Alex Redmond. You don't need interior offensive linemen in free agency, but you could look for a new swing tackle. If you do, go poach somebody from the Washington Redskins. Naseki, I think, could be a good fit there. Now, Ty has been a reliable swing tackle for the Redskins, has been around for quite a while. Maybe he wants a starting role. If not, maybe he could be a true Cam Fleming replacement, a similar guy that I thought was going to get a starting chance in the NFL, didn't really get one with the Cowboys. Maybe Ty ends up coming here instead to the Dallas Cowboys. So that's an option there, but overall, I think the draft is a more likely target process for the Cowboys if they lose Cam Fleming. Other guys that could be probably worse options than Ty. All right, folks, if you have not already, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Dallas Cowboys, where we're going to get to 15K. There's no doubt about that. And once we do, we'll do something fun, probably to me. So throw out your ideas. I know on the Raiders Report, Mitchell Wren's thinking about dyeing his hair. Throw out some ideas there in the comments section there. Get us to 15K. We'll do something fun for you guys and have a little bit of fun together. To defense now we go, where defensive end and defensive tackle could use some help. Now, Demarcus Lawrence, bring him back. Just make that your number one priority. Beyond that, you're probably looking for some defensive tackle help. Now, I'll mention one defensive end and 3 defensive tackles, at least for now. Defensive end, this is only if you lose Demarcus Lawrence. I'll throw out one realistic option here. That is Trey Flowers of the New England Patriots. They could actually let him leave. I think in the end, Detroit probably makes more sense for Flowers than the Cowboys. But if you lose Demarcus Lawrence, sure, go make a run at Flowers. Heck, he could also probably help out on the interior as well. Could be a Tyrone Crawford type that plays inside and outside. So he's a bit of an option there, but I think he kind of prices himself out of the Cowboys in terms of options. Next up, also from the Patriots, Malcolm Brown, the defensive tackle. Now, a quality run stuffer is a perfect description for him, but only 8.5 career sacks. He's not going to be Aaron Donald on the interior or even Gerald McCoy, who, by the way, not on this list because he's not technically a free agent at this point. Once he gets cut, we'll evaluate it then. Now, for Brown, meanwhile, not a best year. No tackles for loss, no sacks. Could actually reduce his cost. Maybe he takes a one-year prove-it deal like this player did last year, Sheldon Richardson, who in 2018 had more sacks than 2016 and 17 combined. We know the Cowboys have had interest in the past. I'm sure they still do. Now, he's never going to be an 8-sack guy. Again, I think that was kind of a fluke early in his career. But he can still be a 4 or 5-sack guy with some tackles for loss. I like that idea of adding Sheldon Richardson if he comes cheap enough. At some point, you just can't pay everybody. Speaking of not being able to pay anybody, that's the LA Rams. Now, Ndamukong Suh is in the last year of his contract, and this is probably his last big deal. Now, he hasn't quite been as disruptive as he's been in the past, but did fare very well in the playoffs. If he's willing to maybe take a little bit less to stay for a contender, I like the idea of Suh with the Dallas Cowboys. There's your dynamic defensive tackle and your incredibly talented player on the inside that brings you that next level for your front four. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm looking both in the draft and free agency at potential defensive tackles. So should the Cowboys, by the way, draft or sign a DT? I'm talking about like with one of your early picks or a big money addition, not like round 7 or a cheap veteran guy who might not even make the roster. Type D for draft, type S for sign. I like the idea of drafting one. It's cheaper if you can't get anybody good in free agency, and it's a very, very good defensive line class. Also very, very good are these mizzen and main shirts that I always wear. Go check them out, comfortable.af. You guys are not going to find a more comfortable shirt, dress or otherwise, than a mizzen and main shirt, comfortable.af. That's the site. On now to the linebackers, where Damian Wilson, Justin March Lillard is a free agent. Sean Lee probably going to get cut. So you are looking for depth. You are not looking to spend big money. Doesn't make sense for the Cowboys. So cross out guys like Quan Alexander and so on. So 2 players to watch out for. First up, Stephon Anthony, who I mentioned briefly in a live Q&A we did. Former Saints first-round pick has been a bust. We know the Cowboys like those types of players. Tavon Austin, Dayton Jones, Marcus Martin, the list goes on. Thought a favor with the Saints and could be a special teams or even a strong side linebacker option. Don't give him much money, don't give him much guaranteed money, but a cheaper option to at least consider if you're the Dallas Cowboys. One more cheap option, Marquise Flowers of the Washington Redskins. Bounced around, played for the Lions and the Patriots this year. Cheap option, still fairly young, mostly plays special teams. Think of this as more of a Joe Thomas type signing, although cheaper. Again, the Cowboys, there's no reason to invest big money at linebacker, especially if you re-sign Damian Wilson. Look for some more depth options there for the Cowboys. We'll get to safeties where there are quite a few options for the Cowboys, but first, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Head over to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code Cowboys120 for a 120% deposit bonus. So put down 50 and you get 60 for free. Put down 100, you get 120. But wait, if you guys use Bitcoin, that becomes a 150% deposit bonus. So help us help you get that extra money. DM us on Twitter @ChatSports, and we'll walk through the process there if you need some help. Go bet with BetDSI. You'll make plenty of money if you know what you're doing there, and we'll take care of you too. All right, cornerback and secondary here, and safety too. So you're mostly good at corner. I'll throw out one name here at the very end of the show who makes sense. But safety, you're looking for help. You could go one of two ways. Get someone to start alongside Xavier Woods and make Jeff Heath your top backup, or just find some depth. For this case, let's focus on getting a new starter. We can focus on drafting for depth purposes. First up, Trey Boston has shown the playmaking and turnover forcing ability the Cowboys have lacked at times throughout their secondary. And I think compared to the other guys we'll discuss here, he'll be more cost effective. Now I will make note, the free agent safety market was weird last year. I think in large part due to Eric Berry. No one wanted to pay a safety. Cowboys passed on Trey Boston, but he can play. I'd love to bring him in. I don't think he'd be that expensive. Sign me up for Trey Boston. And if he hits the open market, sign me up for Landon Collins as well. Best as a box safety, which is easier to find, but might be a better pure fit alongside Xavier Woods than, say, Earl Thomas or LaMarcus Joyner, for example. The downside is I don't think Landon Collins will actually hit the open market. I think he'll stay with the Giants, probably via a franchise tag. They're a very talented player. I'd love to get him, but I don't really see that one happening. Next up, LaMarcus Joyner, the safety from the Rams, plays free safety, but can play nickel, can play strong, can play edge rusher, whatever you want him to be. Very versatile type player. Was probably better in 2017, but still had a good season. And remember, the Rams, they can't re-sign anybody. Will they franchise tag Joyner again? Will they franchise tag Sue? Will they just sign one and not franchise tag the other? He could very well hit the open market. Next up, Tyrann Mathieu, who I promise you is going to be expensive. He made it pretty clear on Twitter recently when he said he bet on himself. That's player code for pay me right now. Now, when healthy, he is among the best safeties in the NFL. But there's also a lengthy injury history. I love the idea of Tyrann Mathieu. The Cowboys should have made a run at him last year. They can rectify that mistake this year if that's the route that they want to go. And then, of course, the name we'll see all offseason long, Earl Thomas. You knew he was going to be on here, but later on, since we went in order of positions, 2018 season cut short by a fractured leg, has been very vocal about his desire to be paid. So here's my question on Earl Thomas. Would he take less money to come play for the Dallas Cowboys? I honestly don't know if he actually would. I think maybe, but I think the Cowboys' comments about not signing big-name free agents, not spending a lot of money, was the start of the early negotiations between Earl Thomas and the Cowboys in terms of the hush-hush. We're not going to talk about it because that's tampering stuff. And then finally, my top guy last year, who the Cowboys should have signed, Kenny Vaccaro. No surprise, he played well for the Titans. It's almost like he's a good NFL player, and he should have been signed way before the Titans got to him. Cowboys passed on him last year with the claim he wasn't a good scheme fit. Now, I know Chris Shaw does have more influence now. I would love to bring in Kenny Vaccaro. He and Xavier Woods, that's a fun, although undersized pairing. But I kind of think the Cowboys won't get a chance because Tennessee will do what they can to re-sign Vaccaro because they happen to know they got a good player on their hands. So we just went through a bunch of safeties: Trey Boston, Landon Collins, Earl Thomas, LaMarcus Joyner, and Kenny Vaccaro. Which safety do you most want the Cowboys to sign? Let me know in the comments section, and go DM me on Twitter @WhatGoingDowney2. I'll let you know which one I want the most, regardless of price, because price, of course, does play a big factor. One last free agency target here, Deshaun Shedd, the cornerback from the Detroit Lions. Now, maybe you're wondering, why are you putting this dude who had like 18 tackles this year on the list? Simple, really. There's your Chris Richard connection. Not that many guys that make a ton of sense this year for the Cowboys and Richard, because Richard really does run the defense these days. but he played for Richard in Seattle from 2012 to 2017, was a starter, then dealt with injuries. He's a buy low option as a cornerback that fits the scheme. You bring in Shed, gives you some added depth, a player who knows the scheme under Chris Richard, and maybe allows you to consider a trade, maybe even a draft day trade of Anthony Brown or Jordan Lewis. You can't keep both those guys together for the long term. So Shed there, a dark horse option for the Cowboys. Those are your top Cowboys free agency options. So what player do you most want the Cowboys to sign in free agency? Is it Earl Thomas? Is it a Ndamukong Suh, a Malcolm Brown, somebody else? Let me know in the comment section. Fire off in a name, even names not listed on there, and I'll be sure to respond. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.